What happens when one of Hollywood's toughest men loses control live on national television? When the calm, composed image he's built for years suddenly cracks, and what spills out is pure, unfiltered rage. That's exactly what happened the moment Tom Hardy walked onto The View. What was supposed to be a friendly interview turned into something far darker. Within minutes, the room was on fire, figuratively and emotionally. This wasn't a slip-up, and it wasn't awkward television. It was a full-scale eruption that sent producers into panic mode, security rushing to the stage, and millions of viewers frozen in disbelief as they watched it unfold in real time. Hardy didn't just argue with the hosts. He detonated the entire set. It was supposed to be a simple morning. The producers of The View were going through their usual checklist. Joy Behar was smiling, the kind of smile that had survived thousands of live broadcasts. Whoopi Goldberg flipped through her notes one last time, ready to throw in a few jokes between questions. The mood was casual, almost routine. The countdown began. "We're live in 5, 4, 3, the producer's voice echoed. Joy adjusted her hair, ready with her opening line. "We're thrilled to have you here, Tom," she said, with her practiced warmth, flashing that easy morning show smile. The audience applauded politely, ready for a feel-good segment about Hardy's new movie. But before she could finish the sentence, Hardy leaned forward, his elbows on the table, and interrupted her. "Are we really doing this, Joy?" he said, his tone sharp enough to slice through the laughter. For a second, the crowd chuckled, thinking he was teasing her, maybe setting up a joke. But then they saw his face, those cold, steady eyes that didn't blink. Joy hesitated, trying to recover the rhythm. "Doing what, Tom?" she asked with a small laugh, keeping her tone light. Hardy didn't flinch. "Pretending this is about the film," he said. "You and I both know that's not why I'm here." His words hit the air like a slap. Hardy leaned closer, his voice low but shaking with anger. "You've been digging into my past. Don't act like this is about art or my work." Joy froze. All she could do was stare at him, her face caught between confusion and disbelief. The audience sat still, not sure if this was a stunt or a meltdown. The tension thickened. A single camera zoomed in on Hardy's expression, his jaw clenched, eyes burning with the kind of fury that didn't belong on daytime TV. Joy tried to smile again, her voice barely steady. "Tom, I think you might be mistaken. We just want to talk about your movie." But he cut her off once more, this time louder. "Don't lie to me." His tone wasn't theatrical. It was raw, personal, the kind of anger that came from somewhere real. Joy's hands tightened on the cue cards as she tried to keep her voice calm. "Tom, I promise you, we only use approved questions. Your team looked at them yesterday." She glanced toward the cameras, forcing a smile that looked more like a plea for help. But Hardy wasn't letting go. His voice cut through the room, cold and sharp. "Approved? Like the one about my son's custody? Or the one about rehab?" The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. The audience gasped, the kind of collective shock that made every head turn. A few people in the front row looked toward the control booth, waiting for the usual cut to commercial. But it never came. Joy blinked, her composure slipping. "Tom, those topics were never—" she began, but Hardy's glare stopped her mid-sentence. "Don't insult me," he snapped. "You think I don't know how your producers work? You think I don't know what kind of show this is?" His tone wasn't loud, but it carried the kind of weight that filled every inch of the studio. You could hear chairs creak, camera rigs hum, even the faint sound of someone's nervous breathing. In the control booth, panic broke out. "Go to break!" one producer shouted. Another tried to switch the feed, but nothing happened. The tech director's face turned pale. "We can't cut it!" he yelled. The new digital feed was running fully live, no delay, no safety buffer. Every second, every word, was going out to millions of viewers across the country. Back on stage, Joy's smile vanished completely. She looked over at Whoopi, silently asking for backup. But Whoopi's expression said it all. She didn't know what to do either. The teleprompter froze mid-sentence. The audience sat in stunned silence, realizing they weren't watching a scripted moment anymore. This was real. The mask of polished television had cracked, and through it poured something raw, unpredictable, and dangerous. Tom Hardy leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight, eyes burning. "Now we're live," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Good. Let's finally talk about what's real." The moment broke like glass. Hardy suddenly stood up, the chair scraping against the floor with a harsh screech that made the entire audience flinch. His palms slammed down on the table so hard that the mugs rattled and one tipped over, spilling coffee across the glossy surface. "You exploit pain for views," he roared, his voice echoing through the studio. Every head turned toward him, stunned. Joy Behar pushed her chair back, face pale but eyes blazing. "You're humiliating yourself, Tom," she fired back, her voice shaking with anger. The tension was so thick, it felt like the air itself had weight. Crew members froze in place, afraid to move. From one of the side cameras, a shot caught Sarah Haynes mouthing the words, "Oh my God," as the chaos unfolded only a few feet away. Whoopi Goldberg stepped in, her voice firm but calm, the tone of someone used to diffusing live disasters. "All right, everyone breathe," she said, raising her hands slightly. "Tom, let's take a step back." But Hardy spun toward her like a storm. "Don't talk to me about empathy, Whoopi," he snapped. "You preach compassion, but the second someone doesn't play your game, you weaponize it." His words hit like daggers. The studio went ice cold. Whoopi stared back, shocked but steady, her jaw tightening as she took a slow breath. "That's not what this is," she said evenly, but her voice carried a tremor. Hardy wasn't listening anymore. He was pacing now, his voice rising with each word. "You people don't want truth. You want performance. You want pain packaged as entertainment so you can pat yourselves on the back and call it journalism." From the edge of the set, 2 security guards took a cautious step forward, waiting for the signal. The control room had descended into panic. "Cut to break! Cut to break!" a producer shouted into his headset. But the switchboard operator shook his head, hands trembling. "The feed's locked!" Another voice chimed in, louder, desperate. "We're live coast to coast! There's no buffer!" The shouting stopped as suddenly as it had started. The silence that followed was somehow even more frightening. Hardy stood still, chest heaving, staring at Joy with that cold, locked-in focus that made everyone in the studio uneasy. His voice dropped low, quieter but sharper, like a knife being drawn across glass. "You think you run this, Joy?" he said slowly. "You're a pawn. They feed you scripts, they tell you who to attack, and you call it journalism." Each word was deliberate, measured, and dripping with contempt. The audience held their breath. Joy's face went pale, but she tried to steady herself. Her hand trembled slightly as she set down her cue cards. "Are you threatening me?" she asked, her voice cracking just enough to betray the fear underneath. Hardy's smirk appeared, calm and cruel. "No," he said, almost whispering. "I'm predicting you." The tension in the room was unbearable. You could hear the faint hum of the studio lights, the nervous shuffling of someone in the front row. From the side of the set, a floor manager pressed his earpiece and spoke under his breath. "Cut his mic." Now a technician in the control booth nodded, flipping the switch, but Hardy's voice still echoed through the speakers, clear, angry, and unstoppable. "I said, cut it!" the manager hissed again, but nothing changed. Hardy's words filled the air like static. That's when someone realized the mistake. He was wearing a backup lapel mic, a secondary feed wired to an emergency channel the crew had forgotten to disable. "Kill the feed! Kill the feed!" another producer shouted, but the control room was already chaos. Screens flashed, audio levels spiked, and no one knew which line to mute. "We can't shut him down!" someone yelled, slamming a hand on the console. On one monitor, Hardy's face loomed large, broadcast across the country in real time, every flicker of anger reaching millions of homes. In the studio, Joy tried to speak, but her words were drowned out by Hardy's voice, lower now, but charged with something almost dangerous. "This is who you are," he said, staring straight into the camera. "And now everyone gets to see it." Hardy's hand came crashing down on the table with such force that the sound echoed through the entire studio. Mug's water splashed across the desk. Security guards at the edge of the set finally moved, stepping forward with urgency. Before they could reach him, Hardy spun toward them, his voice booming. "Don't touch me," he shouted, "and this becomes a lawsuit you'll never survive." The guards froze mid-step, unsure if he meant it or if it was part of his spiraling performance. Joy stood now, visibly trembling, her professional poise completely gone. "Get him off my stage!" she screamed, pointing toward the exit. Her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from sheer disbelief. The woman who'd built a career on control was suddenly facing something raw and uncontrollable. Whoopi jumped between them, arms outstretched. "Wait! Don't drag him out!" she ordered the guards, her voice steady but urgent. "We're still live!" But no one seemed sure of what live even meant anymore. The audience wasn't clapping, wasn't laughing. They were caught between fear and fascination, frozen in their seats. Behind them, Sarah Haynes sat motionless, tears forming in her eyes. "This isn't happening," she whispered, voice cracking. One of the interns by the camera wiped a shaking hand across his face. Another crew member muttered, "Oh God, please cut the feed." But it was too late. Every second of it, the shouting, the chaos, the panic, was still streaming to millions of viewers. Joy's face hardened. "You've lost your mind, Tom," she spat. Hardy stared back, breathing hard, sweat shining under the lights. "No, Joy," he said through gritted teeth. "I've just stopped pretending." The crowd didn't know whether to clap, leave, or hide. The clip wouldn't die. Within minutes of the broadcast, hundreds of phone recordings flooded Twitter and TikTok, different angles, different reactions, all telling the same story. Tom Hardy had gone nuclear on The View. Hashtags exploded across every platform. Hashtag Hardy Meltdown, hashtag The View Unfiltered, hashtag Joyverse Hardy. And by noon, the footage had been reposted millions of times. Headlines from every major outlet dominated the news cycle. Network chaos, The View goes nuclear. Clips were slowed down, analyzed, and captioned with theories about what had triggered the outburst. Some called it a public breakdown, others called it a reckoning. But no one could look away. Inside the network's Manhattan office, panic was spreading faster than the video. Executives huddled around conference tables, arguing over damage control. PR reps typed furiously, crafting a neutral statement that would sound like clarity, but say nothing at all. Finally, the network released a short post. "This morning's segment was an unfortunate miscommunication. We value all our guests and remain committed to honest dialogue." It did nothing to calm the storm. Then came the leak. An anonymous staffer posting behind-the-scenes audio that revealed producers debating whether to push Hardy for a reaction. The internet exploded. Viewers turned on the show, calling it manipulative, while others claimed Hardy had fallen for his own temper. It stopped being about one actor and one interview. It became a referendum on authenticity itself. 2 days later, Hardy was seen leaving a downtown hotel in a gray hoodie, head down, refusing to look at cameras. A reporter called out, "Do you regret it, Tom?" He didn't stop walking. "Regret?" he muttered. "I just said what everyone's thinking." That single line became its own headline. Meanwhile, Joy Behar returned to The View for the first time since the explosion. Her opening monologue tried to strike balance. "We won't let rage define conversation," she said, voice steady, eyes forward. But the studio was split. Half the audience clapped, the other half stayed silent. Online, a new headline summed it up perfectly. Who really lost control, the guest or the show? By the weekend, Hardy's silence became louder than any statement. Late-night hosts replayed the footage. Psychologists called it a cultural breaking point. The moment when celebrity image and human frustration finally collided on live television. Hardy's co-stars stayed silent, but someone uploaded a slowed-down version of his final line. "This isn't over, Joy. This clip will live forever." It went viral again, like an echo refusing to fade. And it did live forever. A week later, The View returned from hiatus with a quiet new disclaimer before the opening credits. Live television can reveal more than intended. It was subtle, almost apologetic, but everyone understood what it meant. That morning had changed something. Maybe not in Hollywood, maybe not in journalism, but in the fragile space between performance and truth. The world remembered the day a morning talk show turned into a mirror, and no one liked what they saw staring back. So, what do you think really happened that morning? Was Tom Hardy just pushed too far, or did he finally expose something deeper about how television really works? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another story that blurs the line between truth and chaos.